All right, you're still watching TVC Breakfast. We now take you all the way to the center of unity where we have Tijesu Adeoye with the FCT brief. Tijesu, in Akwana, the conversation is over to you.
Good morning, Ria. It's great having you back from your trip, and also congratulations on your new certification. Well, good morning, Nigerians, and it's great having you on FCT brief this beautiful Wednesday morning. Well, let's take you into what we have for you today. President Bola Tinubu is expected to announce a pay rise for members of the Nigerian Armed Forces, a move that has generated widespread interest across the country. For many, it represents more than an adjustment in salaries. It reflects growing attention to the welfare, morale, and motivation of the men and women who continue to serve on the nation's front lines in the face of evolving security challenges. While improved remuneration is often seen as a boost for personnel, questions remain about its long-term impact. Will better pay strengthen morale, improve operational effectiveness, and encourage greater commitment within the ranks? And how significant is welfare in supporting broader efforts to enhance national security and military professionalism? To discuss what this development could mean for the armed forces and the country's security landscape, we are joined this morning by Dr. Captain Lukman Gidado, security expert and public affairs analyst. It's good to have you on our program this morning.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, military experts often say that wars are won by motivation, leadership, intelligence, and technology, not just salaries alone. Well, despite this planned announcement, what will you say is Nigeria's weakest link?
Okay, first and foremost, let me start by saying that the highest obligation of citizenship is that of bearing arms for your country. The set of people that bear arms for our country, personnel of the armed forces, the police, they deserve all forms of encouragement and motivation they can get. As a matter of fact, money cannot buy life. So no amount of money can equal the tax of providing security for the Nigerian nation. But there's need for continuous improvement, and that is what we are here to discuss today, which has to do with the fact that just a few days ago, the Minister of Defense made an assertion that in due course, the Commander-in-Chief will announce improvement and increment in the salary of the military personnel. However, that is just a component of how we can strengthen a fighting force. There are other things that we need to look into, which has to do with weapon, better equipment, welfare, family support, better healthcare, and a host of others. Are we still operating in such a way that most of the armament that we have are what was used in the Second World War? These are the things we need to look into. I'm not saying that improvement in the salary is a bad one. In fact, it will improve morale and commitment. And we equally need to look at it from a broader national security perspective. Because if you look at the national security framework of Nigeria, it comprises the armed forces, the police, the NFCDC, the custom, the NDLA, and a host of other security agencies. These agencies, the personnel needs to be strengthened in terms of welfare. So I'm not looking at it from only the angle of the military. There's need for an encompassing security sector reform to improve the welfare of all security agencies towards improving the security architecture of Nigeria.
Well, there are reports that, some military men, or will I say security officials, are leaving the force, and that is because of the alleged poor welfare to this regard. But can better salaries keep experienced soldiers in the military, or do you think there's something else that is making them leave?
To the question of people are leaving because of poor welfare, I don't want to subscribe to that assertion, because people fail to realize that there's no job that you cannot, at some point in time, if I want to do other things with yourself, people evolve. People might want to do other things with their life, and the military is not a conscripted one. Once you've served the mandatory length of service, you are allowed to, voluntarily disengage. And I have a classical example. After serving the years I feel I wanted to serve, and I felt there are other things I want to do with my life, pursue broader career prospect. and I tendered my voluntary resignation, and it was approved. So that assertion is not correct, that people are leaving because of poor welfare. Everybody have their reasons. Like I said, people evolve. However, better salary increment, it will improve the morale and the commitment as well as the dedication of the military. To a large extent, before now, their salary was around 49,000 naira, and now is around 100,000 naira. In the Nigeria of today, 100,000 naira cannot do anything for you. So that is why I said that it's a welcome development, and it shows that the government is actually, appreciating the sacrifices, the equivalent tax that the security personnel are putting in place towards, face all forms of violent crimes such as banditry, kidnapping, terrorism, that is bedeviling Nigerian security architecture. So people are not living because of poor welfare. Welfare is a continuous process. It's not up to a year that the salary was increased to 100,000. And less than a year now, we are equally, there are signals that indicate that there will be another increment in the salary. So it's a continuous progress, and I hope the government that this should be continuous, because when you are able to ease off some level of financial pressure, it improves your commitment as a security personnel.
Well, defense and security takes a huge chunk of our budget as a country, and yet military men and security officials often allege that we are not still spending enough when it comes to security. Now, with this planned increment, do you think that these funds will get to the right people? I'm talking about the men on the ground. Will it get to them, or it's just going to be another ceremonial announcement? Okay,
there's more beyond rhetorics. And I think around last week, there was an announcement that was made that there will be an increase in the number of divisions that we have in the Nigerian Army. That is a good step in the right direction, and it has the tendency of improving response to incidences, and most of these divisions will equally, we now have a small geographical area whereby they focus on. However, before this announcement was made, was there a sort of a threat analysis that was made in terms of not just announcement, in terms of weaponry, in terms of equipment, in terms of technological capability, in terms of investment in drone warfare, in terms of improvement in the welfare of the security personnel? Nigeria Army is, I think, to some extent, they are ready to accommodate these improvements in the divisions. Because before now we have the depot Nigerian Army, but now there's a depot in Osun State, there's another depot in Ebonyi State, Abakaliki, to further broaden the training capacity of the Nigerian Army. But there's more to that. Welfare is there, weapon is there, equipment is there, and other armament. A few days ago, I was somewhere where I was advocating for, in all combat area, there's need for us to remove all our soft-skill vehicle. In this current asymmetric warfare that the Nigerian nation is facing, if in all our combat areas, we are still using soft-skill vehicles that are susceptible to, climbing IED, improvised explosive device, being planned on the road by the criminal groups. There's need for that. This is part of investment. That's why I'm saying that remuneration will reduce financial pressure. However, there are other broader aspects that needs to be looked into, which is weapon, better air care, family support. If all these areas are covered and they are properly strengthened, I think there's tendency of improving the fighting force of not only the Nigerian military and other security agencies.
We've seen some soldiers on TikTok publicly soliciting for financial support and even posting videos from operational areas. Is this a symptom of poor welfare, or would you say this is weak discipline or failure of the military leadership?
I would not say it's a failure of the military leadership, because I am aware of the social media policy of the armed forces. And as a disciplined personnel, you are not allowed to go against the social media policy. All organizations, they have their rules and regulations. They say laws without arms are nothing but mere words, according to the words of Niccolo Machiavelli. So in whole organization, you have standard operating procedures, you have rules and regulations, and discipline is the bedrock of the military. I see no reason why any disciplined personnel, we go on TikTok, we go on social media platform to be, divulging operational, details. That is against the military tradition. So, like I said, it's not the failure of the military tradition. As a matter of fact, soldiers are Nigerians. They are not spirits. They are human beings. And even though there are rules and regulations in place that you must do this, you must not do this, there's need for people to still be held. And when they are held, that's why there are sanctions that have been put in place for anybody that have been found culpable going against any law, any established law. I think such person should be allowed to face the disciplinary measure. So, like I said, it's not the failure of the military leadership. It's just, the human in the personnel of the Nigerian army. People are allowed to, do a whole lot in terms of flaunting the rules and regulation. However, the need for the military, various commanders at all levels, to continue to sensitize the men and the soldiers under them, that these are the do's and don'ts of the military tradition. Because, like I said, there's the military social media policy of the armed forces, which frowns against all sorts of, going on social media to go and be disclosing operational details. It's just about continuous improvement, continuous training and retraining of the men under you, so that at every point in time, they operate within the confines of the military laws and traditions.
All right, Captain Gidado, we still have more to talk about on this very topic, but we'll take this short break. Don't go anywhere, we still have more for you on the program. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Staying with FCT Brief, now we'll continue our discussion with Captain Lukman Gidado, retired. Now, there are different aspects to welfare and not just about salaries alone. Countries like the United States, the United Kingdom and France invest heavily in veteran care, mental health, family support and housing as well. In Nigeria, is Nigeria paying enough attention to life after the military? Like, you are retired now. What is the attention being paid to people like you and also those that have retired even in old age, or it's just about salaries?
Okay, actually, there's an aspect that is I see as a critical gap when it comes to the military, and that gap needs to be stretched. If there's a platform for those that have served for 35 years, like a reintegration plan. When you've served for 35 years, only for other ranks, you go to the Armed Forces Resettlement Center, you'll be trained for a period of time, and mental health and other things you've mentioned, they'll be taken through all this, and they will pass out. When they pass out, before they now venture on their terminal leave. However, for those who choose not to serve for 35 years, because like I said, the military is not a conscripted one. You have every right after serving a mandatory number of years to tender a voluntary disengagement. There is no platform for people of this category. Once you have your approval is out, you go. Nothing like any reintegration plan for you. Like maybe a 1 week, 2 week or 1 month course, either for officers or for other rank, for those who have served less than 35 years. I'm a classical example. I never go through anything of such. These are people that have had combat experience. These are people that require some level of PTSD. At some point, it's their family that takes care of all this. The military does not have any form of platform for them to undergo any form of integration plan. Is it that for those that have served less than 35 years, the service they render is nothing to write home about? I think that is a classical gap, a very big gap within the security architecture of Nigeria. Once your approval is out and you've not served over 35 years, you're on your own, go. So there is need for the current Minister of Defense to look into this and ensure that, provided you have served the mandatory number of years and you have followed the procedure, the established procedure, to say you want to go and venture into other things, there's need for some level of, this reintegration plan to be conducted for you. Like I said, PTSD and other trauma that you might have experienced, for you to be able to reintegrate properly with the civilian sector. And not only that, I can say that there's a level of improvement in terms of the welfare of not only the serving, even those that are not in active service, and there's need for continuous improvement. And you equally made mention of the fact that is it only about salary and others? There are other aspects of welfare which has to do with the family support. Because behind every police military personnel, there's a family that is, behind that suffer, or let me say they made another sacrifice in terms of their long absence. Many a times these people operate under extreme conditions, and sometimes they have to pay the ultimate sacrifice. What are we doing for the home front? And let me give you an example. I think the Nigerian police officer's wife, president, I think if you check across the media in the last 1 or 2 weeks, she's doing a very, very wonderful work in that regard. Going to police barracks, ensuring that the home front is also well secured in terms of a lot of intervention programs and empowerment. So that will strengthen the home front. While we are improving the security, the welfare of those that are going, on combat, the home front is also another heavy investment in national security. And I equally want to applaud the president of the Custom Officers Wife Association. She's equally doing a very, very significant work in terms of empowerment on how we can further strengthen and make the home front more robust. Because if the security personnel are not experiencing too much pressure from the home front, they can focus, on the errands and equivalent tasks of providing security for Nigerians and improving the security architecture of Nigeria. So this is just a testament to what you've said, that aside the welfare of the security personnel, there are other branches of welfare, such as enhancing the home front. Healthcare is also something not to be left to be overlooked. When there is improved healthcare, all these they border on the welfare package of the military and other security personnel. Salary increment, home support, health support, and of course, investment in combat enablers. All these, if properly taken care of, they will improve not only the morale, the commitment, as well as the dedication of all the security personnel. And I equally stated that I will look at it from a broader national security perspective. The military is an indispensable national asset that we cannot do about in Nigeria. But constitutionally, the primary role of the military is to improve and secure our territorial integrity, and also provide security and support to the civil authority when called upon to do so. Support the police. When you support the police, you are able to contain the situation, you go back. But the Nigerian security architecture, especially the national internal security architecture, is more of military-led. And I want to say that as our democracy improves in Nigeria, there is need for a progressive and simultaneous heavy investment in the police. We all know that before now, there's a lot of unprofessional conduct within the police. But you can attest to the fact that the current police leadership under the current IGP is doing a whole lot in terms of enhancing discipline, making the police more people-oriented, and improving preventing all forms of impunity within the police. So that's to tell you that there is need to enhance and invest heavily on the leading agency when it comes to internal security, which is the police. We have countries of the world that they don't have any standing military and they are functioning effectively. The likes of Panama, the likes of Costa Rica, even Mauritius, as well as Iceland. All these countries, they don't have any military. It is the police that is ensuring the security of life and property. But with our peculiarity in Nigeria, there is need for every investment in the police as well as the military. Because any investment in the police will allow the military to focus on the constitutional assigned responsibility of securing our borders. Because if we strengthen our internal and external security framework, both transnational crime and internal security problems that we have, we'll be able to strengthen it. In Italy, it is not the military that decimated the mafias. It is the police. Singapore police is well respected all over the world because there's improved funding. In terms of technology, they are there. In terms of welfare, they are there. So why not saying that investment in the military is a bad one? I'm saying that we should look at it from a broader national security perspective. Invest heavily in the military. Invest heavily in the law enforcement agencies, so that at all fronts we are able to safeguard our territory in terms within the internal and external security framework.
Yeah, you spoke about investment in the military and other security agencies and law enforcement agencies, rather. Are Nigerian soldiers fighting a war against terror with equipment they need, in your opinion? Or do you think they are just being asked too much with very little?
Actually, I said earlier that the security personnel, they deserve all forms of recognition they need to get, because the attacks is different from normal going to office and coming back. These are people that they don't have any closing hour, they don't have weekends. And in terms of weapon, the Nigerian military is doing a lot. Just a few days and a few weeks ago, you could see the importance of technology in warfare. The airstrike that have been conducted over time in the northeastern part of the country, as well as in the Chad region, is achieving significant results. We are investing in drones more than ever before. We are not saying that we've already attained where we need to be, but is the government and the military folding its arms? No, that's a no. But we are moving steadily. We are on the trajectory towards getting to the promised land. And if we sustain this in terms of welfare, in terms of technology, in terms of equipment, I think there's greater tendency of seeing significant improvement within the security framework of Nigeria.
Would it be fair to judge military commanders not just by the number of terrorists they neutralize, but by how well they protect civilian communities from attacks?
In terms of protecting civilian communities from attacks, I want to say that the best form of intelligence is human intelligence. And in terms of synergizing with the community, because where criminal and violent crimes are being perpetrated are the local communities. Communities whereby we have a little governance presence. You can travel several kilometers and you will not find any form of either police or military post. That's to tell you that there's need for every investment with the community partnership. And I think the Nigerian military is doing wonderfully well in terms of community partnership. Wherever the Nigerian military is operating, they look inward to understand that what are the needs of the people. They do a form of needs analysis in terms of how can we support these people towards fostering civil-military relations. And we've seen on several occasions whereby the Nigerian military, we sink borehole, the Nigerian engineers will construct motorable roads for the people of the community, just to improve civil-military relations. All this can foster information and intelligence gathering. So they should not be judged by the fact that they are unable to provide the necessary protection for the civilian community. They are doing wonderfully well, but it's all hands have to be on deck. I mentioned earlier that we've made our internal security framework to be a more of a military-led, leaving our borders very porous. No, I think we need to change that mindset. There needs to be every investment in the DSS. Most of the issues we have are intelligence-led. They are failure of intelligence. And the DSS is doing extremely well, because if you invest in them, especially our security agencies that are internally, that focus on internal security, these are the DSS, these are the police. Invest in them so that the military can focus on their primary responsibility, not a situation whereby I'm not criticizing the number of increments in the number of divisions we have, but there should be simultaneous and progressive improvement in terms of all these police units, anti-kidnapping squad, the IRT squad, the other specialized police units. The Mopol is equally there. There's need for every investment in terms of training. The current police force is not condoning any form of indiscipline. Some police officers that extorted the ICPC chairman, they were apprehended, and there was an open form of trial that will be conducted for them. Equally in Ondo State, some police officers that their utterances were against what is expected of a police officer, they were equally apprehended. That's to tell you that this current police leadership is determined towards improving the effectiveness of the police force. So there should be concurrent, progressive, and simultaneous improvement, not only in the military, but of course our internal security framework, because the Nigerian security framework stands a greater tendency of benefiting when the military is stretching, the police is equally strengthened, as well as the DSS, so that at all fronts we are able to cover the gaps within the security framework of Nigeria.
Aside this reintegration plan that you mentioned earlier and carrying all law enforcement agencies along in this welfare improvement and all of that, what other reform would you recommend to be implemented immediately beyond salary increase to build security forces and their efforts in combating the terrorism, the criminality that the country finds itself at the moment?
Okay, I think it has to do with our combat enablers, because the security personnel, they don't fight with sticks, they fight with weapons and other armaments. In a situation whereby the artillery from their defensive location can identify the enemy enclave and they are able to launch, the Nigeria Air Force are able to carry out airstrike against known terrorist enclaves and hideouts. All these are technologically driven. The Russian-Ukraine war, they don't see themselves eyeball to eyeball. It's more of airstrike, more of missiles, more of drone attacks. And the Nigerian country, the Nigerian nation, equally needs to focus on this. Because if you are able to focus on this, you don't have to see the enemy eyeball to eyeball. The warfare has gone beyond the infantrymen going to look for the enemy. From wherever defensive location, from your operations home, you should be able to decimate the adversary by launching drone, launching airstrike, launching missiles. This will go a long way towards improving the effectiveness of combat. And equally, I have said this earlier, but for emphasis' sake, aside the personnel going on combat, investment in the home front is a strategic investment in the national security.
All right.
When you invest in the home front, you will be able to allow the security personnel going on combat, to stay focused in carrying out their constitutionally assigned responsibilities. All
right, Captain Lukman Gidado, it's always a pleasure speaking with you and getting your insights on security and all of that. Thank you so much for your contributions this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
That's it on FCT Brief, but the show continues.